Good morning. It is 8:52 a.m. on Friday, August 7th, 2020. I'm Christiana Ellis, and I just got up. This is 5 more minutes. I am very pleased that Rocket let me sleep in. He's a very good boy. I don't think I actually said this yesterday, but it has turned into a spontaneous vacation for me. I had been kind of looking for an opportunity to take some time off, but it wasn't obvious when the best time to do that was. But one of the people that I work with most closely at my day job was planning to take off from Thursday to Tuesday, and it seemed like the best opportunity to take some time off myself. So, off work until Wednesday morning. So there. So, now the frustrating thing is, normally in a normal year, what I would be using my time off in this instance to do is to take a trip back to Colorado to visit family, and in particular, I have a 1 year plus niece that is developing all sorts of new behaviors every day, and I'm missing it. Plus, just seeing the rest of my family, they're okay too, I guess. And so I would like to be able to do that, but it's just can't right now because pandemic. Obviously it's not literally impossible, but certainly not for, the problem is I need to be able to go on site to do my job, and I would have to quarantine myself if I went out of state. So can't right now. It would interfere with my job. So only in the case, I think, of a real emergency would I travel out of state right now. So what then? Right? Like, I have a few days off. I could just hang around at home, play video games, and watch movies and stuff. That's honestly not a terrible plan. But it does, there was just a little bit of a feeling like, well, but could be something else though, right? Like, what else might be okay? A lot of people have said drive up to Maine, which is actually one of the states where would probably be fine to go, because there's relatively little virus there at the present. And but then again, it's like, okay, so I have been up to Acadia with my mom last year, and that's beautiful. But am I staying in a motel? What am I going to see specifically? I mean, so these are all things that I could find out if I decided to commit to that path. But I'm trying to decide what makes sense to do. And of course, what I might end up with is just the default is hanging around, playing video games, and watching movies. Speaking of watching movies, I watched 2 movies for the first time yesterday. One was a movie that had long been a gap in my cinema literacy for movies, and for horror movies in particular, and that was the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre. I'd never seen it. I've seen lots of horror movies. I generally like horror movies, but I had never seen that one. And here's my response. Like, it's definitely looks like it was made cheap in the 70s. But you know what? It's really scary. It's very good. It holds up today. And one of the things that actually struck me as really interesting is that it had a complex, nuanced, mostly sympathetic depiction of a disabled character in a wheelchair. And I just feel like that's just something you don't see in a lot of horror movies. And there's actually tension early on about just like, his feelings of frustration, even with his friends who pressured him to come on this trip with them, but then are not actually being very sensitive about going off to do things that he can't do because he's in the wheelchair, and they just sort of leave him behind and expect him to not be mad about it when he's feeling like, you asked me to come on this trip. So, but like, yeah, so that was some interesting stuff that I had no idea was in the movie. And it's also just pretty scary. It's just extremely well like directed, and it's interesting, and yeah. Anyway, so if you also like horror movies and have not seen that one, I recommend it. The other movie that I watched yesterday was Eurovision Song Contest: The Story of Fire Saga with Will Ferrell and Rachel McAdams. That's on Netflix, and this is a very sweet and silly movie. It clearly has an affection for Eurovision as a real thing, and yet it's also got a very sort of heightened, silly, world building around everything in terms of how this all works and everything, and things in the world happen. Like there are ghosts at one point, and so it's not an entirely grounded story, even about the already heightened thing of Eurovision. But it also has some really sweet character, light drama with the characters, and it's really good. I liked it. It's not something that's gonna win a lot of Oscars, but I enjoyed it pretty thoroughly. And there is one joke in particular where I was caught by such surprise, and it was so funny that I laughed so loud that Rocket, who was on the couch with me, fled across the room because it startled him. So, in any event, I'll go ahead and leave it there, and I will talk to you all tomorrow for 5 more minutes.